The heavy wooden doors of St. Augustine's Church groaned as I pushed them open, stepping into the dimly lit sanctuary. The scent of old books, burning candles, and aged wood filled the air, a familiar comfort after a long day. Outside, the city of Boston buzzed with life, but inside these walls, time stood still. It was 9:30 p.m., later than I usually stayed. The church was nearly empty, save for the flickering candles near the altar and the faint hum of the old pipe organ settling into silence. I had finished evening prayers and was about to lock up when I noticed the dim glow inside the confessional booth. Someone was inside. I hesitated. It wasn't unusual for late-night confessions, but something about this felt different. A cold sensation crawled up my spine. I was alone in the church, or at least, I thought I was. I sighed, adjusting the crucifix around my neck, and stepped inside my side of the booth. The wood creaked beneath me as I sat down, sliding the small panel open. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," a deep voice whispered. Something about his tone made me sit up straighter. It wasn't nervous or ashamed, like most confessions I heard. It was calm. Too calm. "How long has it been since your last confession, my son?" I asked. A pause. Then a chuckle. "Does it matter?" The way he said it made my skin prickle. I cleared my throat. "All sins can be forgiven. If you truly seek absolution, God's mercy is infinite." Another pause. Then, in a slow, deliberate voice, he said, "I killed someone tonight, Father." The air in the booth suddenly felt heavier. The breath hitched in my throat. I'd heard many confessions, some painful, some tragic, but nothing like this. I forced my voice to remain steady. You took a life?" "Yes," he whispered. I followed him for days, watched him, waited for the right moment. Then tonight, I finally did it. My grip tightened on my rosary. My pulse pounded in my ears. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His answer was immediate. "Because it's your brother's body, Father." The world stopped. My breath left me in a sharp gasp. My fingers trembled as I pressed them against the wooden divider. What did you say?" I choked out. A low chuckle came from the other side. "He begged for his life," the voice continued, unfazed by my horror. "I could still hear him breathing when I left. The body is still warm, Father." I lunged for the door, bursting out of the confessional. My heart pounded as I yanked open the other side. Empty. There was no one inside, except for a bloody knife and a wallet. I lifted it with trembling hands. My stomach dropped. Inside was my brother's ID. The world around me blurred. I stood there staring at the wallet in my shaking hands, my breath coming in short gasps. My brother's ID was smeared with something dark. Blood. The dim candlelight made it glisten, fresh and wet. My fingers trembled as I flipped it open. Liam O'Connor. His photo stared back at me. This couldn't be real. The confessional booth was empty. No man, no shadow slipping away, no sign of anyone ever being here. Just the knife, the wallet, and the unbearable silence pressing in around me. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "The body is still warm, Father." The voice echoed in my head, each word slicing deeper. Liam, my little brother. I stumbled out of the booth, gripping the wallet like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to move. I needed to call someone. The police, an ambulance. Anyone who could tell me this was some sick joke. I reached for my phone, my fingers fumbling over the screen as I dialed Liam's number. Ring. The sound cut through the silence of the church. Ring. Each tone stretched longer, dragging out my fear. Ring. Then, a click. Someone picked up. I held my breath. Liam. My voice was barely a whisper. Silence. "Liam," I said louder, desperation creeping in. Then, through the static, a sound. Breathing. Shallow. Weak. "Help." My stomach twisted. His voice was barely there. Strained. Broken. "Liam, where are you?" I pleaded, gripping the phone tighter. A cough. Then a faint, scraping sound, like something being dragged. The alley, behind, O'Reilly's. A sharp gasp, and then nothing. "Liam, Liam." The call dropped. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. O'Reilly's. It was a bar just a few blocks away. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat and bolted through the church doors into the cold Boston night. The streets were mostly empty, a few distant headlights cutting through the dark. My breath came in quick bursts as I ran. The city blurred past me, but all I could focus on was getting to my brother. I turned the corner onto O'Reilly's alleyway. Then I froze. A crumpled figure lay on the cold pavement, illuminated by the flickering glow of a streetlight. Blood pooled around him, seeping into the cracks of the concrete. "Liam!" I rushed to him, dropping to my knees. His skin was too pale, his breaths shallow. His shirt was soaked in red. His eyes fluttered open, barely. "Danny." His voice was weak, barely more than a breath. Tears burned my eyes. "I'm here, Liam. I'm here." He struggled to speak. He knew you'd come." A shadow shifted at the end of the alley. We weren't alone. A chill spread through my body as I lifted my head. Someone stood at the end of the alley, half hidden in the darkness. A tall figure, unmoving, watching. My pulse hammered in my ears. The dim glow of the streetlight barely reached him, but I could make out his shape. Broad shoulders, head tilted slightly to one side as if amused. "Liam," I whispered, gripping his arm. His breathing was shallow, each rise and fall of his chest slower than the last. He needed help. Now. But my gut screamed at me that the man in the shadows, he wasn't done yet. I forced my voice to stay steady. "Who are you?" I called out. No answer. He took one step forward. The light caught his face just enough for me to see. His lips curve into a slow smile. A deep, familiar voice drifted through the cold air. "You came fast, Father. Faster than I thought." My stomach dropped. It was him. The man from the confessional. The voice that whispered my brother's death sentence like a prayer. Anger burned through my fear. I slowly rose to my feet, keeping myself between him and Liam. "You need to leave," I said, my voice sharp. "The police are on their way." A chuckle echoed down the alley. "No, they're not," he said easily. "You didn't call them. You called Liam. You ran straight here." My hands clenched into fists. He was right. In my panic, I had only thought about reaching my brother. I never called for help. And he knew I wouldn't, because he planned this. I took a step back, my body tense. "Why are you doing this?" He sighed as if disappointed. "Father, come on. You already know why." I didn't. I had no idea who this man was or why he had targeted Liam. But before I could say anything, he took another step forward, and I saw it. A knife glinted in his hand, the blade catching the light. My breath hitched. The same knife I had found in the confessional. Liam coughed, a weak, gurgling sound. I dropped back to him, my hands pressing against his wound. His blood was warm against my fingers. I needed to stop the bleeding. The man watched, tilting his head slightly. "It's strange, isn't it?" he mused. "I could have let him die alone, but I wanted you to be here. I wanted you to see." "See what?" I hissed, pressing harder against Liam's wound. The man grinned. "That this isn't just about him." My breath caught. Something in his voice sent a shiver through me. This wasn't just about Liam. It was about me. Before I could react, he lunged, The knife flashed. I barely had time to move. The knife flashed under the dim alley light, a streak of silver cutting through the air. I barely had time to react. My body moved on instinct. I twisted, grabbing Liam's arm and pulling him with me as I rolled to the side. The blade missed by inches, slicing through the empty space where my chest had just been. The man let out a low chuckle, unfazed. "Quick reflexes, Father. Didn't think you had it in you." Liam groaned beneath me, his body weak. His blood was warm, sticky between my fingers as I held onto him. He didn't have much time. I had to get us out of here. Ignoring the pounding in my chest, I pushed up onto my knees, half dragging Liam toward the alley's exit. The bar's back door was too far away, but if I could just get to the street. A heavy boot slammed into my ribs. Pain exploded through my side as I was knocked back, my breath leaving me in a sharp gasp. The impact sent me sprawling onto the pavement, my head slamming against the cold concrete. Black spots danced in my vision. Liam let out a weak, "Danny," before the man grabbed him by the collar, yanking him away from me. "No," I gasped, struggling to push myself up. My body ached, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. The man crouched beside Liam, the knife resting against his throat. "You know," he said, almost conversationally, "I could end this now. One quick slice and your dear brother bleeds out in your arms." He glanced at me, his dark eyes gleaming. "But that would be too easy, wouldn't it?" I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. "Let him go," I said through gritted teeth. "This is between you and me, isn't it?" The man's grin widened. "Now you're getting it." A siren wailed in the distance. His expression shifted. Just for a second, his amusement flickered into something colder. The police. Someone must have heard the commotion or found Liam's phone. I saw the decision in his eyes before he moved. He released Liam with a shove, sending him crashing to the ground. Then, in one swift motion, he flicked the knife toward me. Pain burned across my arm. I gasped, grabbing my sleeve. Blood seeped through the fabric. A shallow cut, but enough to slow me down. By the time I looked up, the man was already backing into the shadows. "See you soon, Father," he murmured. Then he disappeared, swallowed by the darkness of the alley. The sirens grew louder. I didn't care. I crawled to Liam, my hands shaking as I pressed against his wound. "Stay with me," I whispered. "Help is coming." But as I looked down at his pale face, something inside me whispered, this wasn't over. Not even close. The sirens screamed through the night, their wailing growing louder as flashing red and blue lights painted the alley walls. I barely noticed. Liam's body felt too cold under my hands, his breathing shallow. My fingers pressed against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding, but the blood kept seeping through. Too much, too fast. "Stay with me," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Help is coming. Just hold on, okay?" His eyelids fluttered. "Danny." His voice was weak, barely more than a breath. "You're gonna be fine," I lied, because the truth, the sight of all that blood, the way his body trembled, was too much to bear. Footsteps pounded against the pavement. Flashlights cut through the darkness. "Over here," someone shouted. The next few moments blurred together, paramedics swarming, hands pulling me away, voices yelling orders. I tried to fight them, tried to stay with Liam, but someone grabbed my shoulders, forcing me back. "Sir, we need space to work." I could only watch as they lifted Liam onto a stretcher, his face pale under the flashing lights. His blood stained the ground, dark against the pavement. The world tilted around me, nausea twisting in my gut. My own arm throbbed, the cut from the knife still fresh, but I barely felt it. My mind was stuck on the man's voice, his parting words, "See you soon, Father." This wasn't random. He had been waiting for me. A hand gripped my shoulder. "Father O'Connor?" I turned. A Boston PD officer stood beside me. Detective Michael Harris. I knew him well. He sometimes attended mass, though he never stayed long. His sharp eyes flicked over me, taking in the blood on my hands, my torn sleeve. "What the hell happened here?" he demanded. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I even explain that a killer had walked into my confessional, whispered his crime like a dark prayer, then dragged me into his twisted game? Harris sighed. "We need to talk. You're coming with me." I hesitated, looking back at Liam. The paramedics were already loading him into the ambulance. Still alive, still fighting. I clenched my jaw and nodded. They led me to a squad car, and the drive to the station passed in a blur. My thoughts raced. I replayed the scene over and over, the shadow in the alley, the glint of the knife, the way he smiled like he was enjoying every second. This wasn't about Liam. This was about me. When we arrived, Harris didn't waste time. He led me straight to a small interrogation room, its fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "Start from the beginning," he said, leaning forward. "Who did this?" I exhaled slowly. Then I told him everything. And with every word, I realized something terrifying. The man in the confessional. He wasn't done yet. Detective Harris listened in silence, his face unreadable as I recounted everything. The confession, the bloody knife, Liam's weak voice on the phone, and the man who waited for me in the alley. By the time I finished, my throat was dry, my hands still stained with Liam's blood. The room felt too bright, too small, the fluorescent lights buzzing like insects overhead. Harris leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "So let me get this straight," he said slowly. "A man confesses a murder to you in the booth, disappears, then somehow lures you to the scene where your brother is bleeding out." I nodded. Harris let out a sharp breath. "That's a hell of a story, Father." "It's not a story," I said, my voice tight. "You saw Liam. You saw the knife. This isn't some hallucination." He studied me for a long moment. "Did you recognize his voice?" I hesitated. That was the worst part. I didn't. It had been deep, calm, controlled, a voice that could belong to anyone. "No," I admitted. Harris sighed, folding his arms. "This guy, whoever he is, knew exactly how you'd react. He wanted you there. He wanted you to find Liam before anyone else." I swallowed hard. "He's playing a game." "Yeah," Harris said grimly. "And you're the main player." A knock at the door interrupted us. Another officer stuck his head in. "Sir, we got something." Harris stood, motioning for me to follow. I did, my pulse quickening. They led me to a different room where a computer screen flickered with grainy security footage. "This is from O'Reilly's back alley," the officer explained, pressing play. The footage was shaky, the streetlight casting long shadows. Then, movement. A figure stepped into view, dragging something. Liam. I flinched, my fists clenching as I watched the man throw Liam to the ground like he was nothing. Then he turned toward the camera. My breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing. A hood obscured most of his face, but for a moment, he looked directly at the camera. Even through the low resolution, I could see the smile. And then slowly, deliberately, he raised a hand and waved. The screen glitched, and the footage cut out. A heavy silence filled the room. Harris exhaled sharply. Well, that's unsettling. I barely heard him. My mind was spinning. The way the man acknowledged the camera, how he waved, he knew we'd be watching. This wasn't just about hurting Liam, I murmured. He wanted to send a message. Harris nodded. The question is, what's the next part of his plan? I already knew the answer. This wasn't over, not even close, and if I didn't stop him, more blood would spill. The weight of the killer's message pressed down on me, like a suffocating fog. He wasn't hiding. He wanted me to know he was out there, watching, waiting. I tore my eyes from the screen, my pulse hammering. "He's not done," I said, barely above a whisper. Harris crossed his arms. "No, he's not. And he's got your attention now." He pointed to the frozen image of the man waving at the camera. "This isn't just about your brother, Father. This is about you." I already knew that. I just didn't know why. "Has Liam said anything?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "Anything that could tell us who this guy is?" Harris shook his head. "He's still unconscious. Docs say he lost a lot of blood, but he's stable for now." A flicker of relief washed over me, but it didn't last long. Liam was alive, yes, but the man who did this was still out there. The weight of the confessional booth returned to me, the way his voice had curled through the wooden slats, calm and certain. He knew me. That much was clear, but I still didn't know him. I turned back to Harris. "I need to go back to the church." Harris frowned. "Why?" I hesitated. I couldn't explain it, not fully. But something felt unfinished, like the answers I needed were waiting for me there. "I just need to check something." Harris studied me, then sighed. "Fine, but I'm sending an officer with you." I didn't argue. I wasn't stupid enough to walk into this alone. The patrol car pulled up in front of St. Michael's, its headlights cutting through the dark. The officer, Martinez, according to his badge, followed close behind me as I unlocked the heavy wooden doors. Inside, the church was silent. The candles near the altar flickered, their dim glow barely touching the shadows that stretched across the pews. Martinez exhaled, glancing around. Creepy place at night. I ignored him and headed straight for the confessional booth. My hands were clammy as I reached for the door, the same one I had opened hours ago to find that bloody knife and Liam's wallet. I stepped inside. The wooden walls felt tighter, the air heavier, like the confessional itself had trapped the whispers from before. I ran my fingers over the carved cross on the divider, then leaned closer. Something wasn't right. A faint smell lingered in the air, not incense, something metallic. I froze. Slowly, I reached under the seat, and my fingers brushed against something wet. I jerked back, my heart hammering. Then I took a deep breath and looked. A small, plastic bag was taped beneath the seat. Inside, a lock of hair. And beneath it, a single note. "Confess, Father, or the next one dies." My fingers trembled as I pulled the plastic bag from beneath the seat. The lock of hair inside was light brown, slightly curled, freshly cut. Whose hair was this? The note beneath it was scribbled in dark ink, almost smudged, as if written in a hurry. "Confess, Father, or the next one dies." My throat tightened. Confess to what? Martinez noticed my hesitation. "What is it?" he asked. Wordlessly, I handed him the note. He frowned, pulling out his radio. "Dispatch, we have a new development." I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was racing. The man in the confessional, he had planned everything so carefully. He wasn't just a killer. He was playing a game. And now he wanted me to play too. But what did he mean by confess? I wasn't the one hiding something, was I? The weight of my past pressed down on me. The sins I'd heard, the people I'd failed to help. I'd always believed that carrying burdens was part of being a priest. But this was different. This was personal. Martinez finished his call and turned to me. "We need to get this to the station. If this hair belongs to someone missing, we need to find out fast." I nodded, my mind still spinning. As we stepped out of the confessional, something caught my eye. A shadow shifting near the back of the church. I stopped breathing. "Did you see that?" I whispered. Martinez followed my gaze. The pews were empty, the flickering candlelight making the shadows dance across the walls. But I knew someone had been there, watching, listening. I stepped forward, ignoring Martinez's warning to wait. My shoes echoed against the stone floor as I made my way toward the back. The air felt colder, the smell of old wood and wax heavier, and then the side door to the church creaked open. I ran. By the time I reached it, the alley outside was empty, just the faint echo of footsteps vanishing into the night. He had been here. He had been inside the church watching me. A cold shiver ran down my spine. He had left that note, that lock of hair, while I was standing just feet away. Martinez appeared beside me, his gun drawn. "You saw someone?" I swallowed hard. He was here, but he's gone now. Martinez cursed under his breath and pressed his radio. Suspect might still be in the area. Send a team to sweep the church. As the officers moved in, I stood frozen in the doorway, my pulse pounding. The killer wasn't just taunting me anymore. He had been close enough to touch. And his message was clear. Confess, or someone else dies. The only question was, who would be next? The weight of the note pressed against my palm, the killer's demand circling in my mind like a storm. Confess, Father, or the next one dies. I turned the words over and over, searching for meaning. Confess to what? To some long-buried sin? To some crime I didn't even know I committed? A team of officers combed through the church, their flashlights slicing through the darkness, but I knew they wouldn't find him. He was always one step ahead. Martinez glanced at me. "You sure you didn't recognize the voice in the confessional?" I shook my head, frustration tightening my chest. Number. But he knew me. He knew about Liam. And now? I held up the note. Now he wants something from me. Martinez exhaled sharply. Then we need to figure out what, before another body turns up. A young officer jogged over, holding his phone out. "Sir, we got a hit on a missing person report." I stiffened. The officer swiped the screen, revealing a photo. A woman in her mid-20s, blonde hair, kind eyes. Margaret Callahan. I stared at the image. The lock of hair in my hand. Was it hers? "She was reported missing an hour ago," the officer continued. "Last seen leaving her shift at a coffee shop 3 blocks from here." 3 blocks. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. The killer had already taken his next victim. I sucked in a sharp breath. "He's speeding up." Martinez turned to his officers. "Find out everything about her. Friends, family, any connections to Father O'Connor." A terrifying thought crept into my mind. What if she wasn't chosen at random? What if she was connected to me somehow? I dug through my memory, trying to place her. Did she attend my church? Had I met her before? But nothing came. Still, the killer had left the message, for me, which meant this was personal. Then my phone buzzed. The number was blocked. My stomach turned cold. I hesitated for only a second before answering. "Who is this?" Silence. Then, a soft chuckle. "You're running out of time, Father." His voice slid down my spine like ice. "Where is she?" I demanded. Another chuckle. Now, don't sound so desperate. You haven't even figured out your sin yet." I gritted my teeth. "You think this is a game? A game?" He let out a mock gasp. "No, Father, this is a lesson. And if you don't learn it soon..." A muffled scream echoed through the phone. "Margaret." I went cold. "You son of a..." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my pulse pounding. He had her. And if I didn't figure out what he wanted, she was going to die. I stood frozen, the dial tone still ringing in my ears. The killer had Margaret, and I had no idea where. Martinez grabbed my arm. "What did he say?" I swallowed hard. "He said I'm running out of time. He wants me to confess, but I don't know what." Martinez's jaw tightened. "We'll trace the call." I shook my head. "He's too smart for that. He's planned everything. The note, the hair, the wave to the security camera. This wasn't just about murder. He wanted to break me, but why? I turned, staring at the confessional booth. The killer had chosen the church as the starting point for a reason. He had spoken through the screen like a lost soul seeking salvation. But he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was delivering a warning. Confess, Father. I forced myself to think. Had I ever crossed someone? Had I ever refused to listen, to help? Then, a memory struck like lightning. 4 years ago, a man came to me, begging for guidance. He was trembling, his words disjointed. Father, I've done something terrible. I think I hurt someone. I need help. I had asked him to explain, but he wouldn't. His hands clenched in his lap, his breath uneven. Please, tell me what to do. I had looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity. But something about him, it felt wrong. I had told him to turn himself in, to seek justice. He had stared at me, eyes wide with something between fear and fury, and then he had left. I had never seen him again, until now. I turned to Martinez, my voice shaking. I think I know who he is. Martinez's eyes narrowed. Who? A man came to me years ago. He wanted guidance, but I sent him away. I think he was already a killer back then. Martinez's radio crackled. Detective, we got something. A location ping near the old railway station, abandoned warehouse on 5th. I didn't wait. I ran. The warehouse was silent when we arrived. A single flickering light above the entrance cast long shadows against the cracked pavement. Martinez and his team moved in, guns drawn. Police. The door creaked open, revealing darkness. And then, a scream. I bolted inside. Margaret was tied to a chair, duct tape over her mouth, her eyes wild with terror. And behind her, him. The man from my past. He smiled, stepping closer. You finally remember me, don't you, Father? Let her go, I said, my voice firm. His smile widened. Not until you confess. Martinez moved in, but the man pressed a knife to Margaret's throat. One more step and she dies. I raised my hands. Okay, I confess. The man's eyes gleamed. Say it. I took a breath. I should have helped you. For the first time, his expression faltered. You were lost, I continued. I turned you away when you needed someone. That was my mistake. His grip shook. Then, a gunshot. Martinez fired. The killer staggered back, eyes wide, and before collapsing, it was over. Margaret survived. The police confirmed the killer's real name, Daniel Reeves, a former patient at a psychiatric ward. And me? I still hear his voice in the confessional, still wonder if I could have stopped him years ago. But some sins can never be undone.